welcome up our very own Jack Benjamin from the Media Leader, who will be speaking with Ollie Shayer from Boots, and we'll be talking about their biggest multi-channel media campaign. So please give them both a warm welcome.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's enjoying the weather. We're about to actually talk about a campaign that you ran in the summer, so yes. I will be wistfully staring outside the window and hoping for next summer. Boots over the summer launched this campaign called Perfectly Imperfect. It celebrated the British resilience to the summer weather, which sometimes isn't that great, although I thought the summer could have been worse. But the campaign was supported by a comprehensive media mix, and I'm excited to sort of unpack that with you, Amazing. Ollie. So I guess before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'm curious, what was the basic idea and strategy behind the campaign? In your own words, what kind of audiences were you trying to reach?
Yeah, definitely. So morning, I'm Ollie Shayer, I'm the Omni Media Director at Boots, so I look after Boots' media planning and buying, and I also run our media group. I think, ironically, it wasn't imperfect. When we came up with the idea about the whole kind of perfect, imperfect summer, we kind of thought, what's the really kind of, for Boots, we want to be there for people, like with you for life. So for all of those moments through your life, so whether it's, going on holiday, whether it's, you step on a bee and you sting you in your foot, you put a sting in your foot, you need something for that. So whatever that moment was that you needed, we had it. Now, we couldn't have possibly imagined that we'd have a summer that was literally sun on one side, rain through the middle, and then sun on the other. Which I think caused massive havoc with the buying teams who bought sun care. But the whole concept of it was about how do we basically talk to customers, because we have such a broad range of audiences that we need to talk to. Yes, we're talking to healthcare customers, but we're also talking to beauty customers. We're talking to the mum who wants to buy all of her stuff for travel, but we're also talking to the people who are in the airport going for that last minute thinking, I need to buy that pillow before I get on the plane. So it was a really broad audience. But the other thing for us is we really thought about what are the moments through the summer, because it's not consistent. So you start the summer, you're thinking about going away. Then during the summer, you're thinking about, maybe I want to go out, maybe I want to enjoy myself, maybe I want to get some new beauty products, maybe I want to get some perfume. And then maybe at the end of the summer, you're thinking about going back to school. So it's one big audience, but we start to break that down by different elements and then look at ways into which we can react to that. So pollen goes up, heat goes up, how do we react to those sort of things as well?
With such a wide audience and so many different types of products that you sell at Boots that you are looking to highlight, where do you start with when it comes to channel mix?
Yeah, so I think what we start really with the audience. So there's a lot of work we do at the beginning of understanding basically who are the audiences that we want to talk to, how do we break that down, how do we build really strong kind of connections planning. We have a lot of measurement data from us to then help us understand what channels have worked really well for us at what time. So we use both econometric measurement, but we also use kind of live measurement that we get from the responses from our campaign activity. And we kind of bring all of that together with basically all of our own first party, which we can then kind of see customers' behavior over that period of time to really build and plan for the campaign. So we kind of build it in that way and then think about the channel. So not thinking channel first, we have that data, but think first about where the audience is and where we want to reach them. Think about how we're going to reach them across the time period and then think about the channel that we want to utilize.
You mentioned how much data that you collect as the campaign is going on.
Yeah.
How does that affect the decision that you're making in terms of that channel mix and adjusting it as the summer goes on? As you mentioned, the summer's a really long period for any campaign, but especially for ones with a broad audience. What are you looking at to make adjustments as it goes on?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two things. One is, I think you all know we have a very large amount of first-party data. So we have an Advantage card. It's the biggest loyalty card scheme in the UK for health and beauty, 16 million customers. So it gives us a really good understanding of the consumer that we can then plan and target to. So we use that a lot for targeting. And then what we're doing through the campaign is we're looking at all the metrics, both creative and media, to see what assets are working at what time, and then how do we adjust those assets, both dynamically, so things that we're building templated content for that can be adjusted dynamically, but then equally also, if we've made a piece of content that's going to be maybe in one of the larger scale channels that isn't really working, we're not seeing the response rate, either through metrics that we get, so we work with partners like Samba TV, so we can see uplift to site from actually TV advertising, but we're also looking at things like YouTube. So what are we seeing the view-through rate or listen-through rate of the advertising that we're running. If we're not seeing it's working, then we can go back and adjust it. So I think it's really about being fluid and dynamic in what you're doing as you go through. It's not always easy for the creative teams, I have to say that, but like outright though, sometimes they're like, do we have to change it? And I think what we're looking at is just how do we maximise every sort of pound that we're spending by giving the best creative for our customers that we know is working.
Speaking to that point, I mean, just sort of a two-part question, but how integrated was the media and the creative team for this campaign? And then also from a normative perspective, how integrated should they be in general?
It's hugely important. I think in the world we live in today, it can't be separated. So we work both with, the way in which we work with our agency partners is that the creative and media sit together. They're fully integrated. They're within one organisation. They have one partnership together. And we have the same internally. So my own team, the strategy and planning team, sits incredibly closely in a squad structure, so an agile process with the actual team that plans summer from a creative perspective. And they speak every single morning. So they run the standard agile processes. They have morning stand-up. They talk about the campaign. They look at the performance results, and then they think about what they can do differently. So I think that's the difference maker going forward. Not only is the data that we have, but it's the way in which we can react quickly and rapidly to what we're seeing with that data. But that can only be done if you work together. I think the days of, and I've been in the industry a while, the days of like media and creative sitting on sort of two sides of the aisle throwing sort of paper at each other, it's not really, that can't work in the future to get you the success that you want.
So there were a number of innovations that you guys used, have been testing in the past. I think with your Christmas campaign last year, I wouldn't be surprised to see it again this year.
Maybe.
But over the summer, so there were, I think, 3 or 4 big ones that I wanted to highlight and break down. So I believe you guys were experimenting with the likes of Uber, with Meta VR, with smart speakers, and also you tagged on to the whole Barbie, Barbenheimer. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about each of those because those are, I mean, as Alex just talked about, there's a million ways to reach audiences now, but those are 4 pretty unique ways. So I guess starting with Uber, where did you see that innovation bringing in extra value for you guys?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I think we run a process called Innovation Slam. So every quarter we bring different partners together. We run a process where we basically give an open brief as to what we would be looking for. And we're looking for innovative ideas to come back. And one of those is that we partnered with Uber over the summer. I think, for us it was very logical. We looked at the customer journey. If you think of it yourself, you're taking a taxi to the airport, right? You're thinking about those last minute things that you may not have bought, you may have forgotten about. You get to the airport, you're like, oh, I haven't got any suntan lotion before I get on the plane, and there's a Boots right in front of you. So I think it's thinking about, again, it goes back to what we were touching on at the beginning, it's that connections planning, thinking about those moments when it's relevant for us to, and the message that's relevant for it. And so look, we thought it was a really good moment and a way for us to trial that. And that worked incredibly well for us through the summer. And I think not just for airports, but for other moments through the year, eventing, festivaling, these are all things where we thought it was it could work really, really well for us. So yeah, I think that was a key piece. And then kind of from an AR perspective, we tested AR last Christmas with Meta. We've done a lot of work. I mean, last year, everywhere I went, everyone was asking about what we're going to do in the metaverse. And strange enough, they're not asking me, they're asking me about AI now. Interestingly, we looked at it a lot, and I just don't think it would work for us for Boots. You can't, people are like, would you build a shop? But actually, if you think about it logically, if you're in a store, actually, and you're holding a mobile phone, the ability for us to surface data through a kind of augmented reality experience actually is very logical. If you're standing in front of a fixture and you've got 10 different products to choose from, using that to do that will help to open that. So that's some of the things we've been looking at, but it was much more fun. So actually we did an AR kind of treasure hunt through it based on for summer, which worked incredibly well.
Was it actually effective? I mean, are people... how good of an activation is it? Because I know, as you mentioned, metaverse has kind of fallen out of the media cycle.
Yes. So I think if we look at it, I can't talk specifically on the numbers, we will put something out about it, but if we look at our own performance data, we saw as strong a performance from the way in which we activate it as we did running standard advertising. And depending on the level of engagement, we saw even stronger performance from it. So again, I think if it's done in the right way, it's done at the right time, targeted to the right customer, it worked really well for us. It's not massively scalable, but I think, again, it's behaviors that are becoming more normalized for customers.
And so tell me a little bit more about smart speakers as well. We'll get into metaverse more at the Future of Gaming this afternoon, I'm sure. But the smart speaker thing is quite interesting. Lots of growth in that area.
Yes, huge.
How did you look at that media format?
Yeah, I mean, I think about, like we were touching on, it's about what customers are doing. If you think about your own behavior, I mean, we just literally were talking about it like 10 minutes ago. The use of smart speakers a way into it to kind of ingest kind of audio content is growing massively, podcasts growing massively. And I think what we were thinking about is how do you break into that space? And so we worked with a partner on that to look at how can you activate into it. So, yes, we could have built Alexa skills, we could have done different things, but actually what we're looking at is how can you when a customer is hearing your radio advertising, which is very powerful for us, how can you then create a moment where there can be an action that can be taken off the back of that? And that's what we did for this. And actually, yes, there's scalability there. Yes, it started to teach us, but actually what was great in all of these examples is it's about us learning. So I think that's what it gave us, was the learning into the space. Is it going to work? And we work on a kind of 80-15-5 model. 80% of our investment going behind the stuff that really works, we know is going to drive return. 15% on the stuff that's worked before, that's going to grow. And this is more of the 5% of stuff that we think will be the future. And testing into it now at a slower scale, when we know we've got the returns from other things, means we can learn faster.
There's so a lot of different mediums, some really innovative mediums. How do you make sure that then the creative is sort of synchronized across all of them? Because, I mean, one of the key things is, of course, wanting to make sure that you're not doing different messages depending on where you're receiving them, right?
Yeah. I think it's probably two parts. One part is what you touched on earlier, which is the closeness of the media and the creative teams working together. I think that can only come when they work really closely together, because we work with the creative teams and showing them everything we're thinking from a media perspective, rather than saying, I've got this great idea, I'd like to do this, would you mind making some assets for it? And I think we worked on a lot of that together, and I think we built it into a lot of the planning for what we wanted to do. So I think the upfront planning made a big difference about it, and I think what that then allowed us to do during the process was to see the things that should work. But I think the other side of it is, though, even though we've got lots of data, I think the natural tendency is then how do I make as many assets as possible? But actually the reality is you don't need probably as many, because actually you can look at the ones that are working and kind of streamline that down or build them out. So I think we've built two things. One is we've learned now the right level of package of assets that we need to make that will tell the story concurrently, and then equally then we can kind of optimize those as they go. But yeah, going back to it, it's the joining between media and creative that's been one of the big things for us.
And the human element, as was referenced.
Very much, yeah. I think it's the key part. I think, it's funny, we were talking about earlier about AI taking over. I think that's the same conversation with marketeers are worrying like it. But actually, it's those two things coming together, those two human elements coming together that makes a big difference.
We've only got about 2 minutes left, but if there's any questions in the audience, I just wanted to flag that for now and or at the very end. Just wanted to ask. All good. Well, I mean, I think one of the big questions is sort of broadening out beyond just this.
Someone's got a question.
It's phoned in a question.
Yeah.
Attention, please.
Should I?
The fire alarm is about to be tested.
Oh, brilliant.
No need to panic.
It's all part of the event experience.
That's good. Someone hasn't deliberately set the fire alarm up for us.
No. It's actually another media mix.
Okay, it's a new medium.
It's a new medium.
I'll put this on the innovation stand for the next day.
Well, I think I'm just going to keep talking over this because I've got 2 minutes left and I don't want to waste anyone's time. And hopefully you guys can still hear okay. Yeah? Okay, cool. Well, look, in terms...
It's new for me. I like it.
Yeah. Wow. What advice would you give outside of... I mean, we talked a lot about one campaign.
Yeah.
And you're also one company. But what advice would you give to other companies, other brands about campaigns, especially longer term campaigns as you ran in the summer and as you run around the Christmas time? In general, in terms of what media mixes should people be looking at today?
I think the thing I would say is what we do is start early. Start early looking at the data that you've got from work you've done previously. I think gather that together in the right way so it's digestible. I think really start by thinking about during the break down the period of campaigning that you're doing. So if we looked at all of summer, it's a massive period of time. So we actually start by breaking it down by month, by week, and then starting to look at how things will kind of work together. And then I think use the information and the data that you've got to then decide as to what the channels are that you want to do, what the measurement, what's the performance that you have previously. But ultimately also go back to what's the objective of what you're trying to do. So for us, we had a very clear objective for summer, about helping customers to understand that Boots could be there throughout their summer, and to consider Boots when they're thinking about these key moments. And I think if you start with that, you start with the audiences, then the other parts of it sort of come together. And the other thing I would say is innovate. I know it's a kind of a cliche thing to say, but I think don't think about, especially in the times we're in now, I think the innovation part is really important. Because I think not innovating means that you may miss something that might be big in the market. So I talk about it a lot, like TikTok 2 years ago, for a beauty retailer, you had to be in it. Now it was much smaller. Now you had to be in it, but if you hadn't innovated at the time, it comes later. So I think those things that you think might be smaller, that there are opportunities to dip into and learn in, do it, test, learn, and then when it grows, then you're there, you're ready to go.
Be a part of the early movement if you can.
Yeah, I think it's don't bet the house on it, but like equally also it's that balance between those different elements of the activity that you want to run.
That 80-15-5 kind of.
100%.
Don't put 80.
Don't put the 5 on the 80. That's
right,
it. Yeah,
right.
I've seen that also happen. That doesn't go so well.
Well, we've got about 30 seconds in case there's any last minute question. Otherwise, Ollie, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
There wasn't actually a fire, so
I'm very grateful
we
for
got
the
through.
fire. We've got through it all right.
Yeah. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.